Hey guys, my name is Adam, and I wanted to talk about a very large story that has been growing in the game industry as of late. It, of course, has to deal with Microsoft and their very interesting project, the brand new Xbox, the Xbox 720, Durango, whatever you want to call it. Nonetheless, I'm going to talk about all the news and rumors that I have heard thus far concerning the Xbox 720, mainly rumors because the release has not actually happened yet, unlike the PS4 when I did that video. So I'll be talking about everything that I know, all the rumors I've heard, and hopefully I can give you a little bit of knowledge that you didn't know before. There's a lot that has happened with the Xbox 720 that I think deserves coverage, so I'm going to start from a very long time ago, and I'll move into the very recent topics that have been popping up all over the internet. So let's get started. The first thing I, of course, have to touch on is the issue of always online DRM, which Microsoft has hinted that they may be implementing that in their future system. We've had a couple of developments since the very beginning of this story, but let me go into the basics of it. Alright, so this is not the first time we've seen always online DRM. We saw this with Diablo 3, we also saw this with EA's SimCity, and with both games there's been a lot of negative feedback. The companies have not done well off implementing this, and a great example is EA's SimCity. Their launch was absolutely horrible. The servers were completely unstable and actually prevented people from playing the game on release for about a week, which is absolutely inexcusable. It is a $60 title that was unplayable to its consumers. That is clearly unacceptable, and I find it interesting that even after this incident, Microsoft was still hinting at adding on always online DRM. Very odd to me that they would choose to do so. The clear draw to always online DRM from a developer and publisher perspective is that it makes it very difficult for pirates to actually use your game because of the online requirement. It's very obvious that this is very much so a developer and publisher friendly tactic, but it is certainly not a consumer friendly tactic. The people that actually buy the games can only be hurt by always online DRM. There's really no benefit to the consumers unless you somehow find that you have a more enjoyable experience playing with friends. But even still, when you have a single-player game with an online requirement, it's very awkward for people to get on board with that. And can you really blame them? The arguments really started flaring up over Twitter for the most part when a former creative director at Microsoft, Adam Orff, actually tweeted out for the consumers to actually just deal with it. And he then went on to say that always online DRM was becoming a standard in the industry, and that people should have to deal with it in regards to what the publishers, developers, or system creators actually feel that they want to include. Now, I did say former because sadly, right after this, for the most part, he did leave the company, although a lot of people do assume that Microsoft was kind of shoving him out the door at this point. He was not technically fired, but he certainly left rather quickly after that comment. Now, he has gotten a little bit of a following, and people have defended him at least a little bit. A notable one would be Cliff Bleszinski from Gears of War, saying that Orff is a real person whose departure from Microsoft shouldn't be celebrated just because he said something stupid. He also went on to say that if I departed from Epic every time I said something dumb, I wouldn't have made it the last 10 years there. It's a very common idea. Just because he said something very stupid over social media does not necessarily mean it should hamper his career. It's something that a lot of people have been debating, whether social media is really a proper way to judge somebody's career and judge the future game systems. But that's not what we're here about. The idea is this was technically a confirmation. Keep in mind that at this time, always online DRM for the Xbox 720 was not confirmed at all. But after this tweet telling people to just deal with it, and he's a creative director at Microsoft, that is a pretty clear and cut confirmation that the next Xbox will be always online. There has been a couple of developments since then, so let's get into that. Just a couple days ago, Microsoft did go on record and say that an always online DRM requirement was never actually the plan for their system. I personally find this very hard to believe, as do many people. Certainly the minority are trusting in Microsoft, and it's for very good reason. Quite frankly, Adam Orff would still be working at the company if the rumors were untrue, because if he told people to deal with it about always online DRM and how it was becoming part of the industry, then Microsoft wouldn't care because it didn't have anything to do with their system. But it's very obvious to me that Microsoft had a lot of problems after that, and a lot of negative press hit them. And if you don't believe that, you could just look at the patents that Microsoft has coined, and it all has to do with always online DRM. Very obvious when you look at it how Microsoft has just fabricated this, and I don't blame them. they're trying to get better press because, quite frankly, at this point, Sony is destroying them in positive press. Sony has gotten a lot of positive press and very little negative. Microsoft is the exact opposite. And it's shocking to me because in the last console war, Microsoft clearly had the edge over the PS3. But this time, Sony's done great marketing. They've done a great job, and Microsoft is really trailing behind. It seems like the more news we get about the Xbox 720, the worse it's actually getting. Nonetheless, they have taken back their plan to put an always online requirement, so it would seem, and they're going to be leaving it up to the developers and publishers if it comes to always online. So I can't really blame them, because, quite frankly, after the disaster of SimCity and Diablo 3, I can't imagine that they would want the negative press that would go with a system that would not actually work on release, and quite possibly even longer, considering how much more popular a console is over just a game. Very important to remember that. Now that we've gotten past the nasty nonsense of always online DRM, I wanted to talk a little bit about the naming of the console. So, as the sequence has shown, it went from the Xbox to the Xbox 360, and as is coined by the internet, the next one will be the Xbox 720. Remember, this has not been confirmed by Microsoft. You will find a lot of YouTube videos that say the next Xbox will be the 720, but this has not actually been confirmed. What I will say is that people like that name, mainly because if you're going in a numbering system and you go from like the original to 360, it makes sense that you would do just another spin around and go to the 720. I don't really have a problem with that name, but it's certainly not confirmed, and they very easily could change it to something else. Internally, they have been calling it the Durango, but that is their internal name, and it probably will not be what's on the shelves. Most companies have a separate name when they're working on it in development, which is exactly what Microsoft has done. It may be called the Durango, but I would not be a personal fan of that name. It just seems like an off-the-wall name that doesn't really mean too much. Now, what I will say about the Xbox 720 and how the internet has supported it is that Microsoft has gotten a lot of press just by not saying anything and not spending any money. If you search up the next Xbox on YouTube, you will see a lot of titles that read the Xbox 720, and people have just coined it that, and it wouldn't be a bad idea for Microsoft to actually implement it. Some people don't like that name, and that's fine, but you have to realize that the press for it has been so good already without Microsoft saying a word. People already know about the Xbox 720 just from YouTube videos, and that's really the power of YouTube as of late. And I like that. I think that it's growing at a rapid rate. I like it, but I also feel that people shouldn't jump to conclusions when companies haven't said a single word. Currently, Microsoft has registered the domain name xboxfusion.com, and what I find interesting about that is if you actually type in xboxfusion.com on your search browser, then you will notice that it will automatically link you to xbox.com and Xbox Live in general. So this kind of tells us that the next Xbox very easily could be the Xbox Fusion, or the Fusion, or whatever they want to call it. There's a couple of alternatives that this could be. This could very easily just be a piece of software that Microsoft wants to develop for the Xbox, and it's going to be sold separately. We don't really know. Another thing is there's been rumors of the next console being split into a gaming rig and a entertainment hub, and the entertainment hub would have stuff like Netflix and music, and then your gaming rig would just be for the sole purpose of gaming, and there's been talks that you could buy them separately or together, and maybe the Xbox Fusion is like a website about both of them together, and like a special offer or something. We don't know, but Fusion does mean combining things. So, hey, that very easily could be what it's about. Or it's Microsoft trying to play a trick, trying to get people to talk about them even more so they get more press. That's something that certainly would not surprise me. Game companies these days have a lot of ways to get press, and using YouTube and videos like mine right now is a great way for them to get press. But it's important for people to remember that this press is also a negative thing on the company as much as it is a positive thing on the company, just on the basis that there's a lot of negative issues that have come out of the console thus far, and all the negative news such as the firing of Adam Orff, or not the firing, the stepping down, but nonetheless, you guys get the point. This is everything I know about the console so far. This is all speculation because the reveal obviously hasn't happened yet. It'll be happening on May 21st if you didn't know. You could find that on xbox.com, and you'll notice that it reads very clearly, a new generation revealed May 21st, 2013. So I will have another video for you after the reveal, telling you everything that was confirmed. And I'm sure I missed a lot because, again, Microsoft has kept their lips very much so sealed on the whole issue. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is everything I know. Very similar to my PS4 video. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in future videos.